Hands. Elbows.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
That was strange.
I don't care though.
Everything's good.
Welcome back to Can You Not? I'm Joe. I do movie things. I haven't said in a
Oh, we're
while.
introducing ourselves. I'm Amber. I'm taking summer classes because I hate myself.
My name's Jesse, and I'm trying to make it out of retail hell.
And this is our podcast, Can You Not? In case you are a new viewer, we essentially take a theme, a general theme, and we each come up with a topic that we then share with the other two, and we talk about it for 10 minutes each. And today's theme, created by Amber, are conspiracies. So
Conspiracy theories.
I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
But before we start, we did get a comment from a Mr. Ender Wiggins, aka the alias of OG Bobby Johnson.
It's his screen name.
I like that.
In relation to our Cavs Fallout bonus episode that we had last week, when Amber was defending the fact that we won a Calder Cup, he mentioned that it was still a national championship and not a farm team. But then he replied to himself and said, okay, maybe a farm team, but still pro sports.
Well, the thing was, people were saying that it's not. Well, at least what my dad was understanding from other people's arguments was that they were saying, well, it's not pro. And that's not. I mean, I didn't hear that, but it was like it's not a national team. But nobody said it's not a national team. They're saying it's not the NHL. You know.
Right.
So.
I did say it was a farm team on the episode. I'm pretty sure.
Well, it is a farm team, but it's still a national team. But go Monsters, go team. I didn't pick a conspiracy theory because that's too predictable. Instead, I was just researching. I actually looked up the science of conspiracy theories and why people believe in conspiracy theories, because that's something that psychology, the psychological community, has given some thought to. So I found a Scientific American article and all this stuff. So just some statistics. For a while, people assumed that conspiracy theories are for the fringe people who wear tinfoil hats, but they did a couple of studies, and 37, at least as of the time when this article was written, which I'm not sure when that was. Let me look. April 30th, 2013. This was right after the Boston Marathon stuff. So 37% of Americans believe that the global warming is a hoax. 21% think that the US government is covering up evidence of aliens. 28% believe there's a secret elite power with a globalist agenda conspiring to rule the world. So these are pretty big percentiles. So it's obviously not just the fringe outside. And so people who tend to believe in conspiracy theories, if a person believes in one, they tend to believe in a lot of them, even if they contradict each other. So people believe that they didn't actually kill Osama bin Laden, but they also believe that Osama bin Laden was dead before we got there. So it's
It makes no sense.
Yeah, it's rather strange. People who believe in conspiracy theories tend to reject science. So examples include the moon landing, global warming, that smoking causes cancer. There are a lot of things, and I can touch on some of these points later probably, but something that I think is interesting is that one of the conspiracy theories that a lot of people had, that the NSA was spying on them, kind of turned out to be true.
It was true.
Yeah, so, because we had all that, we had the PRISM document stuff, we had the Verizon thing where they took 3 months worth of phone calls and texts and things. There are other things, the PRISM stuff, I think was the one, where Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Yahoo, AOL, and Apple all were part of this PRISM program where NSA could look into that, into conversations within that.
Right.
So I think it's just interesting the progression we've gone from the tinfoil hats into, well, this stuff actually could be real. So I'm just, well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we have one sitting right here. So are there conspiracy theories that you guys think are real? Do you think that there are things that most people might say, well, that's kind of crazy, but then you take a step back?
Well, a conspiracy theory that actually became true earlier this year was Nixon started the war on drugs to mass incarcerate black populations that organized against racial intolerance.
Yeah, weren't there interviews that came out?
There was interviews and manuscripts that came out, and also against hippies, and that blanketed also white poor people as well.
Right.
Those that were taking drugs. So what is the easiest way to lock all those people up? And that's with making these substances super illegal, felony disenfranchisement, and they eventually do that. So that conspiracy actually became true.
I actually just found the headline, Nixon official real reason for the drug war was to criminalize black people and hippies.
So I was right, though.
It's literally on March 23rd, 2016. This is on Vox.
Yeah, the Vox. It's not like some Reddit
It's not like
page.
The Guardian. Yeah,
but it did get verified.
Yes.
It did get verified by a few other sources. So that actually became a real thing. I mean, I think it's almost common sense that the government listens into most of the things.
Right.
But how big do you think it gets? Because a lot of people, they also found that a lot of people who believe in conspiracy theories, it's not so much, like the reason why they can believe, like when you ask them and you give them a list, do you believe in these conspiracy theories? And they'll say, yes, he was dead and yes, he was alive in the same breath, is because it's not necessarily that they believe about the details, it's that they have this overarching thought process that there is some big bad authority figure and they are lying to us, you know what I mean? And they're controlling things. So.
But in a way, that's how government runs. It just depends on what kind of paintbrush we paint it with. You know what I mean? Like, of course, government's going to control everything because it's government.
So do you think, like, a bunch of these things, like...
I think they can be real to some extent. You know what I mean? I think there's degrees.
Based in truth, to some degree.
To some degree,
Yeah.
I think there's possibilities of anything.
Enough instances where it's happened to enough people that it may seem like it happens to everybody, right? Like,
What about things like the Boston Marathon bombing? And, like, you know, everybody talks about 9/11. That's the big one right now.
I mean, you can't...
You
and
know.
for the past 15 years.
Yeah.
I mean, with that kind of stuff, it's really hard to say.
The thing with like 9/11 though, and what I always think people forget about is that you literally have to have thousands and thousands of people in on this in order to get all those explosives in there and to be able to line them in. That would take months,
But
if not
here's
years, to
the
try to
only
line the
thing-
whole building with that. It's
The
like
only thing that I found fishy about that whole day was that the Pentagon got crashed into. The
Right.
Pentagon has to be able to see everything and have surveillance and airspace knowledge to know that it got knocked into or a plane was approaching. That's the only thing I find weird. Not the Twin Towers and not the Pennsylvania airfield where it just took
Where
a
they
dive.
took it and went down.
Yeah. It was more the Pentagon thing to me. Because the Pentagon is national security, right?
Yeah.
It's impenetrable.
I just think for all the people who are like doing the whole towers and everything, it says that the government planned the whole thing and that thousands of people are being quiet. Like, I mean, we couldn't even keep quiet that Bill Clinton had an intern that was having sex with him. So how would somehow 9/11 still be covered up today?
It's the media. You know, it's all pattern seeing. Well, the reason that I asked that is because an interesting point that I found is that, like I said, it's all a lot of it is pattern making. Humans want to find patterns in things. Like that's why you see faces in cars. You know, besides the movie, but so I'm just saying. So there are people who find these patterns and they go, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at all these reasons. For example, for 9/11, the guy who owned those buildings right before actually took out a specific kind of insurance that that was for these kinds of attacks. I mean, not airplanes necessarily, but like these, I guess, terrorist attacks. And people point at that and go, see, they must have known. But before that, to my understanding, somebody had tried to plant a bomb there.
Yes.
So it makes sense if you think through it. So a thing that I think is interesting is that these things can happen and they do look like they were planned, maybe by somebody who's like behind the scenes. But there's actually a word for it when people confuse things that are intentional with things that happen at random, and it's called fundamental attribution error. And it's a psychological thing. And I was going through comments on something, and somebody, random person, I don't know, said, much of what people labeled as conspiracy theorists believe is the result of a lack of understanding of social forces like groupthink acting on those in power. One can imagine, for example, a ruling elite acting to take a country to war as a result of an accepted norms of behavior and social pressures within the said elite without there needing to be a conspiracy at all.
Yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting, because that's every time I've heard about conspiracy theories, that's been my question is, well, yeah, these things came together and it happened this way, but why do you think they planned it and that they didn't just take advantage of the situation as it unfolded?
Well, I think a big thing too is that sometimes you find very intelligent people who believe in very crazy conspiracy theories, and you wonder why. But at the same time, I think if you're very intelligent, you can come up with more ways to justify something that's ridiculous.
Yeah, another thing that I thought was interesting is they did another study, and this is also from the Scientific America article, and it says that merely being exposed to conspiracy theories can lead people to become disengaged from important political and societal topics. So if somebody else did a study and they were talking about global warming, and people who were exposed to the global warming conspiracy theory were less willing to engage politically and also less willing to look at that on a behavioral level and change their own carbon footprint. So I think it's interesting that as soon as you give somebody a reason to bypass thought and interaction with people politically and in society, that they take it. To some people do.
The interesting thing about that is, I think, I watched this documentary, and it was on how people are professionals in the way that companies phrase their mottos or their commercials or even their speeches, and what kind of words would help their argument, right? And they were using this, and I don't know if it was Shell, but they hired this one gentleman to rewrite their whole mission statement for this conference or for this event, and it ended up catching on. And he did the same thing with interchanging global warming and climate change, and how you can confuse people with that.
Just with the words you use.
Just
and
with
their
the words you use,
implications.
exactly. So these companies used it so that, you know, they'd be like, hey, the public will still rely upon our fuels.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, right?
Right.
That's how gas companies show commercials that are like all natural, like look
Exactly.
at these birds, but it's for get natural gas.
I think that was another thing that I think that actually proved to be true, if I remember correctly, is that a lot of gas companies in the mid 2000s had a big part in helping to promote the global warming isn't real myth kind of stuff. And I think that was something that just, like, I think within the past couple of years they were showing that things like BP and stuff like that, and the executives up at the top were not directly funding, you know, putting the word out there, but they were funding these companies that were passing it on. So I
Let's
think
do
that's
it
kinda
the money.
interesting.
That's an interesting headline you have there up on your laptop.
Take it away, I'm curious.
So, a common thread in conspiracy YouTube videos I found.
Oh boy.
Guys, let me go. Is the institutional FEMA camps around America, and how they have been seen as future concentration camps for martial law America, and how that could be a possibility. Well, there was this myth that these FEMA camps had $1 billion worth of disposable coffins. And it was this idea, it's crazy. It was an idea that the U.S. government supposedly stockpiled thousands of these plastic coffins for use in conjunction with the FEMA internment camps. And with that, it was a result in either that it could be martial law, or it could have been the outbreak of Ebola in 2014. And it was a crazy idea. Reading this further, it was building these ideas in my head, like, could this be real? Could this be fake? And FEMA has already had a sketchy history of where does the money go and what do they actually use the stuff for. And there is this, there's this company in Georgia that produces these false coffins, like plastic coffins, right?
Yeah, I just saw a picture. They look Tupperware.
Yeah, they're like Tupperware.
Yeah.
And they're used to preserve the coffin boxes themselves, which are very interesting, right? They're like store away. And there's this FEMA camp in Georgia, and the CDC is also in Georgia. And the biggest international hub in the United States, airport-wise, is in Atlanta. So they were linking all these together, that maybe they were preparing for a massive outbreak of diseases, or a way to transmit people that are less likely to be accepted in a martial law society. Crazy ideas were coming from it. I mean, it was amazing to read. It ended up being debunked. At least that's what they're saying.
Right.
Well, so I think Snopes said that's what you have.
Yeah.
Snopes does its best.
They
Trust
do.
Snopes.
They do a pretty good job.
So they got the official of this Vantage Products Corporation that produces these kind of things, and said, it's been going on for a while, it's been going on for a week. Lacey maintains that the theories regarding the property and what's on it aren't quite accurate. The coffins aren't coffins at all, according to Lacey. Instead, they are burial vaults, the outer container for caskets. Lacey said placed in the ground before the coffin to protect the coffin. There are currently 50,000 of these burial vaults on the property. As the vaults were placed on the site around 97 or 98, there have been as many as 70,000, 80,000 to begin with. It's nowhere near the quantity that they talk about on the internet. But it doesn't debunk what these FEMA camps are for.
That's a good point.
So FEMA is just a thing in the government that they're supposed to swoop in if the state government can't handle what's going on.
Pretty much. Like, think about that. They usually are the first, with the Coast Guard and other forces, they're responders to natural disasters.
Okay.
If you remember New Orleans,
Yeah.
there was that FEMA debacle where they were spending money on iPods and Macs instead of helping out people. And they weren't helping out the poorer wards of New Orleans, and they let a lot of people drown.
Damn.
And there was firsthand accounts of this, that FEMA actually was there to make sure people died. And that wasn't conspiracy, because a lot of the survivors were saying, I had to fight on my own.
Wow.
But it's conspiracy in the fact that it's from a marginalized group of people. So how can that be true? So FEMA has had a very checkered past as of recent. And now there's these facilities coming up around the nation, and there hasn't been an answer for why they are there. So I guess I'm opening the question as to, is this a conspiracy, or could there be possibilities of truth in this? You know what I mean? Like,
Well, another thing that I'm thinking again, at least with the New Orleans thing, is this again could be some kind of coincidence, in that if you have a bunch of people and you just give them money and you let them put it to whatever you want without forcing them to track it, they're gonna buy fancy toys. If they don't actually care about the people, maybe they're buying things instead. And as I don't know about people like FEMA officers killing other people or that kind of thing, but if you breed a certain mindset into the people who you are sending as first responders, they may all act in a specific way. So that was just my first thought, and I'm not saying one way or the other. Obviously, I wasn't there. I don't know what was going on, but I think that's worth noting.
I'm looking at a little bit more. Apparently, like, these rumors about them having the camps started in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there were like stuff going on kind of bubbling around then, and during the Oklahoma City bombing, it really bubbled up. And I guess the 1998 X-Files movie really propelled the ideas too. But it says in the 2000s, foreign terrorists were kind of perceived as the major threat, so there was like less like talking about that. But the late 2000s recession and the election of Barack Obama renewed opposition to the federal government, and the rumors have been going crazy all over again since then.
well, I mean, there's so many conspiracies that have come about because we have a black president.
Right.
Like, it should be impossible that he's there. It's like, okay, it's impossible because of your racism. So you're stating your racism, and you're building these conspiracies based upon your racism.
Right.
Like, the whole is he born in the United States thing, he was like, what?
Well, we're seeing a similar thing with Hillary Clinton now, aren't we, in a way? It's like how much of the stuff that's coming out about her is true or not. Because on one hand, yeah, like she's had some really shady dealings, especially with Wall Street and big banks and stuff like that.
Well, even the email scandal, there's been videos of her laughing about it.
Right.
Saying, I hope no one catches me, so.
But at the
The
same
FBI
time...
aren't going to do anything about that
No.
one.
No, in fact, they literally just said today...
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
They said they advised that they would not pursue it any further. They didn't find any justifiable way to continue it. But
Sure.
It's interesting to think about... Because I can't imagine that all this stuff you hear about, I mean, all this stuff can't be true about her. It's like, where do we draw the line between what is real and what is fake in something like that's happening right now?
At the same time, does having these thoughts of conspiracy really make a conspiracy, or could it mean alternative thinking? Because...
Go ahead,
Yeah,
sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
You can approach things with skepticism. I didn't write it down, so I'm not going to be able to find it precisely. But approaching things with skepticism is okay. But conspiracy theories also often come from I want to find that
Like
sentence.
almost like irrational and
Well,
unfounded
yeah,
kind of
conspiracy
idea.
theories tend to come from mistrust, feelings of isolation, because, like, if you are in some elite club on the internet in some forum, I guess, that knows the truth,
Yeah.
and you guys are all, like, or girls or people are all, like, you know, you can bond over that if you all believe in the same thing. So a lot of times conspiracy theories, they just tend to come with this set of characteristics. So I'm not saying that if you believe in conspiracy theories, like certain ones, because of evidence that you found, that you're irrational necessarily. But I think part of the issue is that, you know, a lot of times with conspiracy theory type things, it's the same things repeated over and over again, and it can be hard to find evidence contrary to that. So it's like the flat Earth people, for example. They have their list of facts, their list of quote facts, like wiggle fingers facts. They're not real facts, but they keep repeating them, and they won't listen to the counter arguments. So you get this bulleted list of things that is repeated, or the moon landing, you get this bulleted list of things that are repeated over and over again.
Sure.
So I think that in order to really make it rational, if you really want to like buckle down on that, you have to work really hard on the opposite side to make sure you have to challenge every single one of your points, and you have to try and prove it wrong in order to be sure that it's right. You know what I mean? Like, you have to try on both sides. But I've never been interested enough in most of it.
I mean, it's interesting because we paint conspirators as those that are sometimes irrational, sometimes kooky, sometimes crazy, and sometimes down on their luck. But the interesting thing about it is when you have a group of people that have significant population to it, and they do believe in these things, it's interesting who we paint as conspirators and who we don't.
That's true.
Because for the longest time, there was a large segment of the Latino and Black population that were saying, you know, we know we're being mass incarcerated, but yet no one wants to fucking believe us.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until there was proof and documents of that
There you go.
it became
they're not
true.
Crazy.
So it's interesting how we paint conspirators and like how that's held. And who do we decide? I don't know. It's interesting. It's all interesting to me. Sorry.
Absolutely.
Okay. Bye. Bye. My time's gone. Bye time.
What it is time for is our sponsor this week is Unfade. It's an app made by the same people who made ScanBot, which is a mobile scanner app. This team has built this app based on years of experience in mobile scanning and image intelligence. I don't know if you've ever tried to digitize photos, either of you, but it really sucks. I've had to do that before for slideshows and stuff, and either you just have to rip them all out and try to scan them one at a time, or you have to send them away to like a scanning service, and that's always kind of scary too. But Unfade, this new app that just came out, solves that problem. They let the users scan the analog photos that they have with optimal quality and ease of use. I mean, all you have to do is just hold your phone over the photo. That thing's interrupting our ad. You hold your phone over the photo, and the app will just automatically detect and crop it, and it'll give you different filters and other little effects in order to enhance them and make them seem even better than they might have been when they once actually were taken.
Get rid of that red eye.
Yes. So it's fast, it's lossless editing, high quality. You can get it today on the iTunes store. I would highly recommend it. They're called Unfade. There's a link in the show notes.
Woo!
I had some fun looking up some conspiracies amongst the ones that I'm not going to go over, but I still thought I'd mention.
Is Pixar Bay or is it not Bay?
There's the idea that JFK launched nuclear weapons weapons at the USSR, which plunged the world into a nuclear apocalypse. But when time travel was finally developed, the CIA sent an agent back in time to kill JFK, so he couldn't launch the apocalypse.
The timeline doesn't make sense because the Bay of Pigs already happened. Like that whole timeline doesn't make sense to me.
There's also
Wait. They said that
JFK started a nuclear apocalypse.
Oh, and then
so
they
sent
sent him
someone back in time to kill him before he started.
That sounds like a really good plot for a video
Sounds like it'd be
game.
a good
So they're saying if this timeline makes sense, the Bay of Pigs happens, we fail at that.
Yeah.
Okay. Then there's the whole Cuban Missile Crisis. and JFK solves that.
Yeah.
But you're telling me if he did not die immediately after that, he would have launched a missile at the USSR.
Yeah.
Wow. There's a lot going on there.
That's heady. There's also that the Earth is hollow and that the Nazis moved inside the Earth after World War II.
No, they just
I like that one.
they just moved to Argentina, and that's a fact.
And
That is a fact.
that rocks are actually soft and squishy. They just tense up when something touches them.
Oh, that's a goofy one. That's not a conspiracy theory.
And finally, red-headed people come from humans mating with aliens called Lyrians.
Why are
My
they
mother's
called
Illyrian.
Lyrians? Why is it
Illyrian?
Illyrian? Oh
It all makes sense now.
no. Why is it Lyrians?
But I'm gonna read you a little story about the one I decided to talk about.
Those weren't it?
No.
Damn.
So, a Chinese woman back in the 1970s had a 14-year-old daughter who was diagnosed with cancer of the mouth. The doctors told the mother that her child was terminally ill and that there was nothing they could do for her. The mother refused to give up hope and visited every church in the city to pray for her daughter. When that didn't work, she came to the end of her rope. The desperate mother became involved with satanic rituals and devil worship. They say that in order to save her daughter's life, she made a pact with the devil himself. For curing her daughter's cancer, the devil demanded only one thing in return.
Deadass.
She would have to create a cartoon character that would appeal to children all over the world.
Pokemon?
The devil wanted to use the popularity of this cartoon character to trick people into worshiping Satan. When her daughter recovered from her cancer, the mother kept her promise to the devil. She created Hello Kitty.
What? Why do we worship Satan when we see how? What?
But there's reasons. For example, Hello Kitty was designed with no mouth because the daughter had cancer of the mouth. Hello Kitty's pointed ears represent the devil's horns, and the word kitty means demon in Chinese, so Hello Kitty really means hello demon.
I just googled Hello Kitty mouth cancer, and I'm just gonna see what pops up.
There's a lot of issues with this story, though. First of all, Hello Kitty was created in Japan.
Yes, I was
China.
about to say.
Also, kitty does not mean demon in Chinese.
And also,
So it's like-
Snopes says it's false.
Oh,
so-
that's good. Just to make
Snopes
sure.
good, man. Snopes is
I was
good.
kind of worried there for a second.
So Snopes like it's true.
And the designers of Hello Kitty also say that the reason Hello Kitty doesn't have a mouth is so that you can project your emotions onto the character. You know, it's like, you know, that way if you're feeling happy, you can say Hello Kitty's feeling happy. If you're feeling sad, you can say she's feeling sad. So, what do you think of this?
That was a wild ride.
It's very. I feel like it is linear to all those Illuminati kind of conspiracies that all deal with devil worshipping and media and characters and music and actors, actresses, and all this stuff. It's wild, man. Like, it's so anti-logic. With the internet, you would think you'd be able to snuff this out real quick, but people want to believe in what they want to believe in.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is that there is an actual case that turned out to be real from 1999 that is known as the Hello Kitty murder. So this is actually real. So there was a nightclub hostess who was kidnapped by 3 dudes who visited the nightclub, and they took her to an apartment where they imprisoned her. And this was in Hong Kong. They beat and tortured her daily over a debt dispute. After a month of imprisonment and torture, she was killed, dismembered, and her skull was stuffed into a giant Hello Kitty mermaid doll, where they discarded most of the other body parts.
So scary.
So yeah, that one's a real one, actually. That's really terrifying, actually.
That's exciting.
Why do I feel like that could happen in Cleveland?
Besides that, I remember reading before, this is kind of a conspiracy about Hello Kitty. Apparently, Hello Kitty is not an actual kitty, even though it looks like a cat. The creators say that she is a 3rd grader who likes cats, and so who dresses up like a cat.
I mean, it's Japan.
That's-
Can I read you this other really fun one that I just found? Did you have a thing? I'm
No,
sorry.
I
Okay.
had no-
So like I said, I'm on the Snopes And there's another Hello Kitty origin myth that the character was invented to help win public acceptance of a controversial nuclear power plant in Japan. I don't know how it goes together, but that's apparently a thing, okay? And it echoes a rumor that Cabbage Patch dolls were given their characteristic appearances in an effort to accustom people to the look of mutants following a nuclear war. So somebody was like, what are people gonna look like after the fallout? And they go with Cabbage Patch Kids.
I can say with the Hello Kitty thing, there is a possibility that could be true or could not be true based on Japanese cultural usage of mascots. They have so many mascots for everything. They have mascots for cities. They have mascots for mayors. They have mascots for subways. They have mascots for a type of sandwich at a restaurant.
That's true.
They have a bunch of mascots. So I wouldn't be surprised if they use some kind of mascot to be like, hey, nuclear energy. We have a mascot, but at the same time, I don't think it would be particularly Hello Kitty.
I think part of this just comes from, like, if any character or pop culture thing becomes big enough, there's going to be conspiracies and theories and BS about it. You know, like there's probably all kinds of same stuff for Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny.
Yes.
And, like, you know, it's like if you go into any significant enough figure, Marilyn Monroe or, you know, like
Tupac.
Jimi Hendrix, Tupac. Yeah, it's like
He's still alive.
There's always going to be a million things about it, right? Like that's what I feel like this came from initially.
It's interesting. I don't know. That's not what I was expecting. I also feel like that's the kind of thing, like, if that were some kind of conspiracy theory, and let's just say for kicks and giggles that Hello Kitty is from China, do you think it would have gotten out of China if they were selling something that said Hello Demon? Like, in Chinese? Like, don't you think the Chinese people would have taken a step back and gone, I don't think I'm down with this.
Yeah, this whole conspiracy is a very Western sort of thing.
I feel like, I don't know, man. There's something going on with our Western view and how we view the rest of the world. Because I feel like Americans just have this weird obsession with being like, what is this? It has to be related to something. We must build a tangent. Like,
well, it's funny that you mentioned Pikachu a second ago because I could easily see.
Didn't mention.
Well, when we were saying the cartoon.
Oh, you said
character,
Pokemon.
You guessed
Pokemon. Yeah.
Because there were similar sort of things going on. I remember when Pokemon was really big. There were all these things about, like, what is this anime devilish nonsense trying to be infiltrated?
Oh yeah, it's like the
kids'
parents who
lives
wouldn't
and
let their
stuff.
kids read Harry Potter. It's the same thing. It's they're teaching our kids witchcraft. No, they're not.
They're teaching our kids how to be decent people.
I know
and learn
J.K.
virtue.
J.K. Rowling, I remember at least in an interview several years ago, she had mentioned that no kid had ever once come up to her and said that they joined witchcraft because of her. Which, so, I mean, I'll take her word for it.
Weird.
Because they can tell it's not real.
Right.
And even if they can't tell it's real, they're not going to say, I joined witchcraft.
Unlike some adults, apparently. Don't seem to know. Yeah, I don't know.
Adults do scary things with children's stories, so, you know. I'm trying to think.
Leave
Anything else
Pikachu
weird?
alone, man.
Leave Pikachu alone.
Leave that
Britney
damn
alone.
electronic rodent. Oh.
No, the other thing that I saw, just circling back to the Cabbage Patch Kids thing, is that it wasn't necessarily a fallout, but that they were saying that nuclear radiation could cause people to develop disabilities. So they were trying to accustom people to the way that people with disabilities look, but I also don't get that out of Cabbage Patch Kids
When I was reading comments for...
at all.
When I was reading comments for a thing about conspiracy theories, one person said that when they were in high school, they had a classmate who said that the disabled were all actors who were there to help people feel superior or something like that. Like, it's like a public reminder that we are better than we think. It's like, what the? Like,
That's weird. That's not how that works.
that's pretty messed up.
I guess that's better than anti-vax. But
Oh, that was brought up too.
So if you know anybody who's disabled in any way, they're just getting like a government paycheck. Just to let you know. Be warned.
I'll let them know that I'm in on them. That was fun.
Well, that was an interesting episode. Interesting in a way that the last episode was not. That was
But that's
interesting in
okay,
its
because
own
we
way.
moved on.
What did we learn today out of all this?
A lot of things. Go read that Scientific American article. It's called "The Moon Landing Was Faked" with a bunch of exclamation points.
man.
And you
Yes,
can learn all the things I did.
Stanley Kubrick, he directed it, the whole moon landing. Because
This is an article on Scientific American.
Yeah, well, this is real life though.
Okay.
He directed 2001: A Space Odyssey, and they were so convinced by it that he had him direct the moon landing too. And there's clues in The Shining.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what they do when they want to hide something. So they leave clues in their next
they
movie.
hide it in the movie. Yeah.
Jesse.
I learned that FEMA has some weird stuff going on, and it hasn't been disproven. But what truly are plastic bins that hold coffins? What
I
are
can
they?
tell you what that is. I looked that up. Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah.
So what they are is coffins and bodies decompose, and when they decompose, they become less structural, so the ground falls in on them. So you put them in a plastic
So keep the
container,
foundation
so that way you don't have
soil.
things caving in
Yeah.
the cemetery. I forgot to mention that.
Huh.
Okay.
I learned a thing.
I remember reading that.
I
Okay.
never would have thought of that invention. And
But yeah,
That's what we learned.
I still don't get what the FEMA camps are about, though.
No, fair.
and I learned
That hasn't been answered. Sorry.
I learned all hail Hello Kitty. I'm gonna sacrifice my first child to Hello Kitty. I'm gonna probably make it a daily ritual, actually.
How many kids do you want to have?
How
How many times are you going to sacrifice your firstborn child?
Bryce is listening to this and is like 0.
Yeah, I'll just get a goat. They're
Don't
good
get
enough.
no. I like goats.
I don't want Hello Kitty. Needs
He's
blood.
joking, Mr. Kowalski. He's joking. He doesn't believe any of this stuff. He's a good little boy.
Ooh.
Maybe.
Ooh.
If you want to check out more of interesting conversations, you can go to soundcloud.com/CYN podcast. You can go on iTunes, Can You Not, under the podcast section. Give us a rating. We'll read it on air. We need ratings. And you can email us. You can give us suggestions, topics, ideas.
Tell us we're wrong about stuff so we can argue with you.
Yeah, we'll rebuke your facts if you have a
Or-
way of proving these conspiracies.
Or if you have a good point, we'd love to talk about that too. 'Cause
Yeah.
we like learning things.
CanYouNotPodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, you can follow your boy on multiple socials, but I'm gonna not give it out because I feel like I'm in my 1999 form right now. Because I'm shining on them.
As long as it's not 1999 with the brutal Hello Kitty murder.
I'm still worried about the Nazis living in the hollowed out center of the world right now. So
Like, can they not?
can they not?
Can they Nazi?
Oh.
Conspiracy, we almost made it through one episode without Joe having a horrendous ass pun. Can you not?